Well, hello everybody. My name is Nikola and I'm your guide here in the beautiful town of Dubrovnik. The Pearl of Adriatic, as they call it, right at the palm of your hand or at the hand of our saint protector, Saint Blaise, who you can see everywhere. Now, he's right there, but you're gonna see him a little bit later everywhere we go around. Now, I think this is enough of my face. I'm gonna show you the beauties of my town, Dubrovnik, Croatia. Enjoy it. So the history of the town of Dubrovnik dates back to the 7th century AD. We are on the Adriatic Sea in the Mediterranean in Croatia. The very south of Croatia is this beautiful city connected to the world with Dubrovnik International Airport. The history of the town dates back to the 7th century AD, and the town was formed by the Byzantines. So a lot of stone doesn't make this town ancient. A lot of people think we are an ancient town because the whole old town was built out of limestone, but we are not. We are medieval town. The origins of the town, as I said, dates back to the 7th century AD because the Byzantines fled from their town, you will see it later, today called Cavtat, in the old days called Epidaurus, to the peninsula that was right here in front of us, peninsula called Laos. In the 10th century, the peninsula became too small to hold all of the town's citizens and buildings, so people of Dubrovnik decided to cover up the marsh that was dividing the peninsula and the mainland, and to expand the town across. So that's what they did. In the same time, they started building the town wall. The most important thing, the biggest asset of our town wall, as I said, started with its construction in the 10th century. To have the wall as we have today, it took 7 centuries to build. So about 700 years, the wall around the town was built. I'll explain you how just in a matter of seconds. First of all, what I'm showing you right now in front of us is the hill called Srđ. So the town lays between the Adriatic Sea and Srđ Hill, 412 meters above the sea level, or approximately 1236, or may say even 40 feet above the sea level. On top there you have fortress, that's French-built Austrian improved fortress Imperial. In 1990s, that was the last line of defense of the town. You will hear what happened to the town in the 1990s. To get to the top of the hill, you see, you can use the cable car, you can hike, or you can drive yourself because there's a road that will take you on the top of the hill over there. My favorite is, of course, the cable car to go to the top and then come back down. If the wall was not enough of defense, in front of the town we have also the moat. Well, there was a moat until the beginning of the 20th century, when the moat was covered up, as you can see how deep it was, and the road that now goes around the town was built. And you can see the road just out there, maybe you saw it. So that's the road you're looking at, and you can see the road comes from the canyon up ahead. So that's where the road comes down from, and you can see it right there. So the wall construction. Originally the wall was built to defend the town against the Venetians. Let me just show you that the sea is very close by. So this was seawater in the moat. So again, the wall was built to defend the town against the Venetians. In year 971, our patron saint, well, he wasn't patron saint back in that day. A year later, he became patron saint, Saint Blaise. That's him right there, ladies and gentlemen. This elderly gentleman that holds the right hand in the blessing and welcoming, and the left hand keeps the town safe, that's Saint Blaise, a patron saint of fraud in Catholic Church. So in that 971, he showed up in local priest visions, telling him about Venetians' intentions to attack the town. And he told him also that he should go and warn the town authorities about it. And of course, the priest did exactly what he was told. As everybody was super religious back in the days, everybody of course believed the priest, and they started building a wall around the town. The original wall around the town started on that side, on the south side, above the sea, because that's where the biggest threat was coming from the Venetian ships, from the sea. So that's where the oldest parts of the wall that we can meet, or see, or walk on top of it, of course. So the wall construction started, Venetians came, and they saw that there is a wall around the town. When they started their warpath, there was no wall or nothing. So they decided not to attack, not to lose ships and manpower, and they went back to Venice. Because of that, we celebrate Saint Blaise as the town's patron saint since year 972. Up ahead you can see two flags, one on the right is Croatian national flag, and on the left is the town flag, again with Saint Blaise on it. So as the wall was very effective, the wall construction continued, and it lasted until 1296. So 375 years the wall around the town was constructed. But immediately as the wall was constructed, the wall became obsolete. So why the wall became obsolete? Because it was the time when Marco Polo came back from China. He brought not just silk, spices and ice cream, but also the gunpowder to Europe. These original walls were not built to defend the town against the cannons. Now something had to be done. And this is what has been done. You can see there is a front wall and there is a back wall. The front wall is newer. That was built, the round towers were built, as you can see. So the cannonball will bounce off the round tower, or if it hits the flat part of the wall, between the two walls there is a filling with soil, with dirt. So if the cannonball hits the first wall, the energy of the impact will be dispersed in that, let's say, a sandbag effect area, and there will be no damage inflicted on the wall whatsoever. So how greatly it was built, we saw that in 1991, when for the first time the town was really attacked by military. Now again, let me show you Saint Blaise. You see almost all of Saint Blaise's in the town are shown in this position. Right hand raising the blessing and welcoming, left hand keeps the town safe. Now we are right inside. And I'm showing you now the Pillar Gate, today the main entrance, but in the old days the side entrance into the town. And you can see right there on the entrance still the mechanism of the drawbridge. Who knows, maybe it's still functioning. We never tried it. The doors can be shut, but they're never shut. The city, the old city, is always open. The old city today is just the neighborhood of the whole town of Dubrovnik. Inside the walls of the old town, we have around 800 people still living, and the whole town of Dubrovnik has approximately 41,000 citizens. Now, to finish the story about the wall, so the wall construction or reconstruction started in the mid-14th century, and it lasted until the mid-17th century. So for another 300 plus years. And that's why we say here the construction of the wall lasted for about 700 years. Because of its uniqueness and because of its integrity, in 1979, of the wall and the old town, of course, in 1979, Dubrovnik became UNESCO Protected World Heritage List. This is the town in front of us right there. So I'm going to use my finger to point that this here used to be the peninsula, and then this was the marsh that was covered up, So this was the covered up marsh in the middle, right there in the middle. And then above, on the top, the mainland and the wall that goes all around the town. So everywhere around you can see the fortresses and forts and all of that. So you can walk around the town wall, or on the town wall, 1,940 meters is long, or 1.2, maybe 3 miles, 1.2, 1.3 miles. About hour and a half, easy walk. There are bars on the south side, so this side of the wall where you can stop and have maybe a drink or a snack and then continue your walk around. Today, because of 1667 earthquake that did the biggest damage to the town in its history, this, let's say, younger part, that northern part up here, is now the older part of the town. This lower part was almost completely rebuilt after the big earthquake, while the northern part remained standing as it was. Now, the Renaissance, newer part of Dubrovnik once, is the older part of Dubrovnik today. I'm gonna show you. We're gonna wiggle around the main street, gonna go up and wiggle around, and you'll see almost everything interesting from Dubrovnik as it is. Of course, Dubrovnik Old Harbor, once the heart and soul of this town, now is an R&R harbor, much bigger, newer harbor, is built in the beginning of the 20th century on the western part of today's whole town. Once again, UNESCO protected since 1979. That meant that this here wasn't allowed to happen. But unfortunately, it did happen, and we were attacked by our neighbors in 1991. The time of disintegration of Yugoslavia. Unfortunately, it wasn't peaceful disintegration, it was very bloody disintegration. War that lasted for 4 years in Croatia, 3 years in Bosnia, did not bypass this beautiful town. I'm going to show you the key. This is the second largest destruction of the town in its history. Around 65% of the town was badly damaged. 9 buildings were burned down to the ground. You can see the red ones, or the orange ones, or the colored ones. Those, for instance, those two. And the rest of the damage. When peace came by Dayton Peace Accords in 1995, restoration of the town started immediately and lasted more than 5 years. Altogether, the whole reconstruction costed about $2.85 billion US dollars. So yes, you heard me right, $2.85 billion US dollars. Now, let us go into the old town. Prepare to be amazed by what you see. Now, this is the best time to be here because we are celebrating our patron saint day on the 3rd of February, and you can see everything is being prepared for the celebration. The most festive time of the year for us is yet to come. So here we are in front, everything being ready for the celebration and for the procession on St. Blaise's Day. We celebrate St. Blaise, as I said, since 972, so this is 1050th celebration of St. Blaise here in the town. The first thing that everybody sees here when they come into the old town is Onofrio's big fountain, or Onofrio della Cava. Italian architect designed and built this 16-side fountain, 16 different gargoyles, as an end of the town's first running water system. Yes, you heard me right. In 1438, the town of Dubrovnik got its first running water system. The running water system was about 11 kilometers long, or how much? And it came from the spring of the river in the hill down through the wall, and you can see right here at the end of the wall, so right on the drain, and the pipelines right there, and then it went into the fountain. Now the water in the fountain comes from the inside drains, and still the water is drinkable. So when you're thirsty, you have your water bottle with you, you can empty it on this fresh water of the fountain from 1438. So yes, still fresh running water coming out from these gargoyles. We expect a lot of people on the 3rd of February here. And that's why water is let out. Now in front of us we have two churches very close by, but with very different history. The one on the right is older Franciscan church with a Franciscan monastery in the back, but because of the earthquakes and all the damaging happenings that happened to the town, and the church itself had to be restored and repaired many times in its history. The last time in 1991. Hit more than 20 times, the whole monastery complex and the church had to be restored. But in the big earthquake in 1667, also very badly damaged. And you can see now on it nothing from the original church from the 14th century, but from the 18th century reconstruction. Now the church on the left, St. Saviour's Church, so Saint Saviour's. I think the name of the church can tell you that it was built to somebody who saved the town. Yes, people thought that God saved the town from a larger destruction in 1520 earthquake, so they dedicated and decided to build a church in his favor. First Renaissance building built in this town is the church right in front of us, but something much more interesting about this church. This church, since it was built, has never been damaged or even destroyed. Well, better say, it was never destroyed or even damaged in anything that happened to the town. In 1667 earthquake, I told you that the church on the right, Franciscans, were very badly damaged. You can see how small gap between these churches is. How small space divides these two churches, these two buildings. It's a miracle the church on the left, St. Saviour's, wasn't damaged. In attack on the town in 1991, remember, more than 20 shells fell on the Franciscan complex. Nothing on St. Saviour's. A lot of grenades fell in front of it on the main street. More than 50 grenades, landed on the entire main street length. And here in front of the church too. Okay, you can see how beautiful day it is. Average temperature in Dubrovnik in the winter is 10 degrees centigrade, but in the sun it's much warmer. The only damage done to the church here is the damage that hasn't been repaired in reconstruction because it's non-structural damage. So people can see what is going on is right there. From shrapnels, pieces of the exploding grenades. Now I'm going to show you something quite interesting right here. Inside Franciscan monastery, in year 1317, Franciscan monks built town's first pharmacy. As probably the first step in battle against the Black Plague, monks decided to open the pharmacy. Maybe the story about the pharmacy wouldn't be so interesting if the pharmacy isn't fully functional even today. Yes, you heard me right. After 700 years, inside the pharmacy, inside the Franciscan monastery, we have a fully functional pharmacy. The old pharmacy now is a museum, but a new, functional pharmacy is right there. You can see that's opening hours or working hours right there. Now let me show you a bit of it as we go inside. Because when I'm doing this, it's after 1 p.m. and the pharmacy is working until 1 p.m. Right there, 700 years pharmacy in the same building. Not exactly the same spot, because you can see the old pharmacy museum is inside the Franciscan monastery, and the Franciscan monastery is a museum that you have to pay the entrance fee to go in. But because here in the town, everybody knows everybody, I can just show you the beauty of the inside of the Franciscan monastery here from the beginning. So, if you ever come to Dubrovnik, maybe I can give you a walk around this beautiful facility. Now, let's go out and let's go into the main street and walk a bit on the main street. As I said at the beginning, all of this is limestone. Even the main street is built out of limestone. It is very polished, it is very shiny. No, it's not marble, it's very polished limestone, because millions of happy feet walk up and down our main street every single year. The official name of the town's main street is Plaza. Let me show it to you right there. Get away from the sun. Plaza plus plaza, piazza means always the same thing, market or a square. So why would somebody call the street market or a square? Well, because right there at the end of the main street was, or still is, the town's main square. On the town's main square there used to be a market, and that's why plaza, market, trading place. But even today everything on the main street is about shopping and businesses. So it's one big shopping street. But somewhere throughout the 14th century, as the town opened, as the town became a bigger maritime and merchant center, a lot of the people started coming here more than once. And because of the way how the main street was built, it appears to be way longer than it actually is. When you enter from that side of the town, that was where all the foreigners had to come in, all the merchants and diplomats, because the way how the street was built, it appeared to be longer. They started calling it stradale. Stradale in Italian is the big street. And people here liked it. And instead of stradale, they started using local slang stradun. And even today, stradun is how we know our main street by. If you say that you're going to meet somebody at Plaza, maybe they go to the wrong market. But when you say to meet somebody on Stradun, they for sure will come and meet you at the right spot. The wealth of the town to be able to build itself in such a glorious way came from salt trading. Salt ponds or saltery in Ston, 1 hour drive from here to the west, provided all the necessary salt for the town and its needs. And we are now in the Renaissance part of the town. Still Christmas ornaments. And they're going to stay here probably the whole year or until the restaurants reopen. Not all of the restaurants are open in the town. Some are. So if you do come in this time of the year to Dubrovnik, you can enjoy beautiful local food. Mediterranean food, of course, mix of various different European cuisines, some local influences, change some of the dishes that you may know or you have eaten somewhere else. Trust me, when you do come here, you will have a great service. So let me just show you what you can find in one of the restaurants here. So this is Renaissance Dubrovnik. You can see balconies here, narrow streets. Citizens here try to make their streets more lively, green. You see, no bushes, no trees, nothing of that growing on the town streets, because the town was built to hold as much as possible. Until the big earthquake, 6,500 people used to live in this small area. Remember, the town was just inside the wall, and the wall is 1,940 meters long. So here, what you will not see much in the other parts of the town are balconies. Look, balconies, balconies, balconies. Everywhere up and down this street you're gonna see balconies. Why you will not see them on the other part of the town? Because after the big earthquake in the reconstruction, it was forbidden to build balconies. Why? Because when a building is shaking, if you have felt that ever, you want to run out of the building. And if you run out of the building in this small, narrow street, there is a big possibility that your balcony is going to follow you. So it's not a large open space in this area, and that's why, due to the earthquakes and of course possibilities of new balconies falling down, they were forbidden to be built. Why such a big difference between these two parts of the town? Because the middle and the south side part, they were built on a very soft terrain, while this area here was built on a rock. What I'm showing you right now is the oldest tree in the town, probably the old wine tree. That's what this hotel is named after. Still fully functional tree still alive. You can see a bit of the leaves on it. Still the tree provides grapes. They say it's so old it's witness to 1667 earthquakes. Beautiful palaces here, ornamented by the coat of arms of the families. So you can see that. Okay, now let's continue. Now, if you can enjoy the narrow streets, now soon we're gonna go back down to the main street. In Dubrovnik, you're gonna see a lot of cats. Cats are here forever. They keep the town safe from all the rodent pests, keeping them down where they belong, in sewages, underneath the streets. And that's why in Dubrovnik we never had big epidemics of any of the old, let's call them medieval diseases, sicknesses. So nothing too much from Black Plague or typhus or cholera or anything like that. Because 1317, first pharmacy, even before that, 1298, the first sewage system was constructed. Then the mid 14th century, the first hospice. 1377, the first constant quarantine was formed on the Mediterranean, probably in the world, here in Dubrovnik. That lasted 40 days, quarantine, quarantena, quaranta, number 40 in Italian, 40 days. Then, since 1409, all the town streets have to be paved, so to keep the town as cleaner as possible. So here we are, back on the main street. Now look down to the west and back here to the east. Probably you have the feeling that we are closer there than we are to the east and to the west. As I said, remember the optical illusion. But standing right here, we are standing in the middle of the town. How can I tell that? Because right here I'm standing above the only square tile in the entire central pavement of the town's main street. So I'm in the sun, so you can see it right there. There it is, the only square. If you look around, you're gonna see that all other ones are rectangular and that only this one is square. So all other tiles between these drains on the left and the right and between the gates are rectangular. So standing right here, we are standing right in the middle of the old town Dubrovnik. And now we're going to walk down towards the town's main square. On the main square, or above it, we have the city bell tower. This bell tower has the town's only non-swinging bell. Okay, I went a little bit too far, too high. Because of that, that's why I have those two guys next to them, Mara and Baro, two bronze jacks, who hit the bell every hour in the hour and once every half an hour. There they are, our bronze jacks. Underneath the bell, a clock, an octopus clock, with only one hand showing the time. You don't see much of the minutes, maybe more just an hour underneath it. What you see there, there's the moon, or better say, moon phases. That's a brown ball with the golden cape on it. You can see now with the golden cape on top, there's no moon up in the sky. Then the window that you can see in the circle was for big candle to light up the clock. And then in 1929, in the reconstruction, because of all the damage done to the bell tower throughout the history, this last part, what we call a digital clock, was added. So this was added, and you can see 1:25. This is the time when I'm filming this. This is the best clock in the town because this clock saves you 5 minutes. It changes every 5 minutes. So as long as you're 5 minutes late, you're on time, but when you're 5 minutes and 1 second late, you're already 5 minutes late. So the best clock in the town right in front of us. So let's walk down the main street. So we go down. Of course, let's say this is like St. Mark's Square in Venice. You want to sit here, you want to have a drink here. Well, you're gonna pay the price for it, of course. On the town's main square, we have some of the most important buildings, but not the most important buildings in the town. And this is where all the merchants were selling their goods when they came to Dubrovnik back in the old days. Of course, on the town's main square, we have church of the town's patron saint, Saint Blaise. This is a Baroque church built on top of an old church that was destroyed in the big earthquake in 1667. Beautiful stained glass windows. And of course, Saint Blaise on top. And you can see Saint Blaise again in the position that you have seen him already around the town. On the other side of the town's main square, we have one of the most beautiful buildings in the town. This is Sponza Palace, right there. Sponza Palace used to be the town's customs office and town's mint. Today is a city archive. This beautiful building, as you can see, has two different construction styles. The Gothic top, half an hour hit, and the Renaissance ground floor. So why would you have an older style above the younger style? It doesn't go that way. Older doesn't grow above younger. Well, here it does. Why? Because when something would happen to a building, when there was a damage done to a building, when building was restored, it wasn't restored the way how it used to look like. It was restored in the way how it would look like today. So that's why different construction styles. So every merchant who came to the town had to go inside and pay their taxes on the amount of goods they have to sell in the town. And all the money of the town that was made right inside there. And you see, that's why there are bars on the window buildings, not to stop people coming out, but to stop people getting in and take all the money. City Archive, the oldest document kept safe inside the archive today, goes back to year 1022. This building here used to be the city guard's palace. In front of it we have small Onofrio's fountain. 2 years later, after the big fountain in 1440, you can see soldiers' hats, cannons, cannonballs. So this used to be a city guard's palace. And next to it we have a city hall. So this is town city hall, although you wouldn't think it's a city hall because of the beautiful terrace of the coffee shop right in front of us, the city cafe right here, that's their space. But yes, this is still the town's city hall, built by the Austrian government that came after the French in second part of the 19th century in Austrian neo-Renaissance. Today is a city hall, but as you can see also a city cafe, and on the very right end it is City's Theater, named after one of the most famous town's comediographs or writers, Marin Držić. That's why you will see KMD. Theater of Marin Držić, or Marin Držić Theater. As we pass by the City Hall building, we are now in front of two town's most important buildings. This one, the first one that I'm going to talk about, is the most important building in the town, public. The other one is religious. So this here is Rector's Palace. Rector's Palace was the home of the rector, seat of the government, also the courthouse and the town jail. But it was the biggest and the most beautiful building in the whole town. It had to be such because this is where all the diplomatic chores were held, and it had to wow every single foreigner who came into the town to do the diplomatic chores. So political system in Dubrovnik was very, very simple. Only noblemen could participate in the work of the town political life. A young nobleman at the age of 18 would become members of the city parliament, and as the members of the city parliament they were taught and they learned how politics works, how it functions, how diplomacy works and everything else. So they were in kind of a school, let's say. At the age of 50 they were finally ready to step into the next part of their political life, which was the membership in the town's government. So only noblemen age 50 plus were allowed to be members of the town's government. Why so? Because the belief was that only men age 50 are old enough to know how the life works, have enough political skills and diplomatical also skills and knowledges, but also have earned enough money throughout their life, having their own businesses, not to be easily corrupted. All of that is important because the government made all the town laws, rules and regulations. So that's how. If you hear some bumping, that's just the children here on the stage of the celebration. Now, because all of the surrounding countries, fortunately there was only one country that was surrounding Dubrovnik back in the days, and that was the Ottoman Empire, that never attacked Dubrovnik because Dubrovnik paid an annual tribute to the Ottomans not to be attacked. But every other European country has that one person who was the country, was it a king or a queen, emperor or the empresses or sultan, the town of Dubrovnik implemented the position of director. Director was not a bloodline. It wasn't God-given. You were chosen, or they were chosen to the position of director. And only men from the government were allowed to be director of the city. Now that is the problem, because there could be a lot of envy from the rich noblemen on one to another, and that envy can reach or lead to the end of the town. Could be backstabbings and overpowerings and coups, but that never happened in Dubrovnik. Why? Because they were smart. Because the term of director, his duty lasted for 1 month. Yes, 1 month or 30 days. After that time, that man would leave this beautiful palace, go home, the new one would come in. They could not be re-elected immediately. For his re-election, a man had to wait for 2 years. So 24 months. There were 24 other ones who could fill the spot of director. This is director's office right here in the corner. So corner office is nothing new, at least not for us here in Dubrovnik. Also, home office is nothing new for us here in Dubrovnik, because right there in the corner was rector's bedroom. So if he wasn't feeling well, he would just put on his robes and slippers and would walk from his sleeping room into his study right there. And here we are in front of the second most important building in the town, or other most important building in the town, religious one, the town's cathedral. Virgin Mary Assumption Cathedral, also Baroque style, also St. Blaise again. See the position. Built on top of an old cathedral, unfortunately also destroyed in the big earthquake. The seat of the bishop is right here inside the cathedral. The most important part of the cathedral today are cathedral's altar and cathedral's treasury. Altar is Titian's painting, or Tizian's, one of the most important Italian Renaissance artists. And the treasury of the cathedral keeps around 200 different relics. The most important relics for us, of course, are relics of St. Blaise. They're going to be taken out on St. Blaise Day of the 3rd, and they're going to be taken into procession around the old town, so people can touch relics, we call them mites, of St. Blaise, believing that it is going to bring them good luck and fortune and save their families, of course. But the most important part and the central piece of the treasury is a small part of Jesus' cross. Just to show and tell how important this town was in the old days, it was able to acquire a part of Jesus' cross. Now, we are leaving the cathedral, we are leaving the old town for a bit and entering the old town harbor. Once the heart and soul of the whole town now is an R&R harbor of the old town, where only small family boats are docked, and small ferry, small boat that goes to the island in front of the town, the island of Lokrum goes to. So here it is, the big fortress of St. John, protecting the harbor entrance right there. The old harbor was way different. It was bigger and deeper. It wasn't bigger in size, but it was bigger here, because you see, you have two types of tiles. The one here and the one there. Those tiles and these tiles. Or these tiles and these tiles. You see, they're different. So when the train came here in 1901, Austrians decided that the new harbor should be next to the train station. So they built a new harbor, on which today cruise harbor is, and they decided to cover up this harbor to make it smaller, to allow people to walk around the harbor and outside. And that's why the Austrians built these piers. You see, the old boats were tied all the way to the city wall. Now nobody, see, so that's where the sea went. And there were no pier around St. John Fortress, because why would you build such massive walls and massive fortresses and then allow enemy soldiers just to walk into the town? And you can see there a couple sitting on the bench, but next to a couple sitting on the bench you can see these two big holes or rings where the ships were tied, because inside St. John's Fortress used to be a warehouse from where salt or something else was poured down or sent down into the big ships. Then they would sail out and do the trading. There were no pier across here to the other side. You will see that I couldn't walk here in the old days until the 20th century. Also, what you can see here are still the old crafts that hasn't died in Dubrovnik. A big tourist center. People still do the old craft of fishing here, and every morning you can buy fresh fish right here from the local fishermen of the old town. So these three arches, that's where the shipyard used to be. Arsenal, not for guns but for ships, repaired, restored or built. And you can see how all of this was filled. Rocks were pulled, thrown so the pier can be built. And again, you have these two rings so they can tie the boats to it. That's the Dominican Monastery bell tower right there. And the eastern main entrance into the town was right for there. So the eastern entrance is still there, but it's not the main entrance anymore. And now, right in front of the main entrance into the town in the old days, the final quarantine building from the 17th century was built. So right there ahead of us. So this building here, as you can see, it has 10 roofs for 40 days. A passenger or a merchant would enter on the one furthest away from the town, and every 4 days they would advance closer and closer and closer to the city, and then on the 40th day from the closest one they would be allowed into the town of Dubrovnik. If they would develop signs of illness, they were sent across to Lokrum Island into the hospice of Benedictine monks to be cured, or unfortunately died if the disease was not curable. I hope you're enjoying all of this as much as I am in this beautiful, glorious, sunny day here in Dubrovnik. And the majority of the days here are sunny. Let's walk across the old harbor so I can show you from where first citizens of Dubrovnik came from, and then we will end our small presentation of this beautiful town. Are in our boats. You can see how clean it is, because right down there are sea urchins. Look. And you will not find sea urchins in polluted sea. I hope you're enjoying this. Now the town is empty almost. Not that many tourists in the town. So the best time to be here, as I said, is now to enjoy the beauty of the town. If you want to swim, well, then this is not the time to be here because the sea is still cold. So this is where the restaurant is in the summer days. The restaurant with this view. And right there, at the end of the big bay, is today's Cavtat, ancient Epidaurus, a settlement from where first town citizens or founders of Dubrovnik came from to establish what we today know as Dubrovnik. So there, right there. So thank you, Byzantines from Cavtat, for what we have today. Just above Cavtat is Dubrovnik International Airport. After the big earthquake, not everything was rebuilt because there was not necessary, because 50% of the population was killed. And you can see that the buildings here are slightly different than what you saw inside the town. They're built by the Austrian government for the Austrian civil service workers of the Croatian origin who came here in the 19th century to teach the locals the Austrian way of life. And bureaucracy, of course. And now I'm going to show you something a little bit different. The wall that we see in front of us was not touched in the reconstruction, so this is the original wall from the 13th century. As the wall is original, so is the Saint Blaise. So you see, before the independence of Dubrovnik, Saint Blaise had only one job, only one duty, and that was to keep the town safe. Look. So you see, Saint Blaise here just keeps the town safe. His other hand is keeping his cane. So this Saint Blaise doesn't welcome you, but only keeps the town safe. So before the independence, the town wasn't a big merchant center. It wasn't a big diplomatical center. There was not a lot of people coming into Dubrovnik. So that's why Saint Blaise's job was only to keep the town safe. So this here is the oldest statue of Saint Blaise in the town altogether. And now let's go through the gates into what used to be the main entrance, the street of St. Dominic's, a street that will lead us up to St. Dominic's monastery on the left and church, or to the right out of the town. But here we are going back into the town, we are going back onto the town's main square. Right there at the beginning of the town's main street. And this is it. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you enjoyed it, this small walk through Dubrovnik, and that maybe you're intrigued so much that you want to come here, that you want to visit Dubrovnik. Once again, I'm Nikola. I'm your host here in this beautiful town, and you can see that I'm right here on the main square in front of all those beautiful buildings that you saw. So thank you very much for watching one more time with the view of me, my smiley face, and the most beautiful street on the Adriatic, if not the world. Thank you and goodbye from Dubrovnik, Croatia.